You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
We are the Mad Men of Masculinity. Your home for healthy masculinity. We're just real men having real conversations for you.
And we're live, folks.
That's right.
It's that time again.
Right.
You know what time it is.
You know what time it is. Tell me, do you know? You know what time it is? That's old school. See, I don't know about it. If you ain't from DC, you don't know about it. Hey, I am Chris M. Samuel.
And I am Jason B. Kendrick.
And we are the Mad Men of Masculinity.
That's right. We're just real men having real conversations for you.
For you, that's right. And we getting real today, man.
Like, if you notice, if you happen to be watching, there seems to be another person in the studio.
There's somebody else in here, man. Somebody else in here, man.
See, we do have friends. We don't just hang out here in the studio all day and talk to each other.
I know y'all think we're a couple suckers and we just sit around here, the two of us, like we in the basement. You know, like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure of Beavis and Butthead.
I'm not 300 pounds. My name's not Chuck. I'm actually
No way we doing this thing. We got our man in here. We just met this guy, man. I'm telling you, he's cool as the other side of the pillow.
Right.
Only Mr. Issa Isreal. How you doing, sir?
Doing wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Pull that mic right up close to your mouth there.
Pull up to that microphone.
He's getting mic ready. I think super. Let me see here. Yeah, we gonna adjust.
We missed one thing.
Yeah, pull that mic real close. There we go. That's what we talking about. Now we talking about there.
Now people in the airways can hear you because they're like, see, they're talking to themselves again. I told you.
How you doing, sir? Man, don't mind our shenanigans around here, man. We still bootleg crashing bad boy. I'll tell you, man. Say we as ghetto as a box of cheese with black and white writing in it, man. You know what I'm talking about. I know the brick. Y'all ain't never been there, but I've been there. You can't melt that cheese, man. You can't melt that cheese. I don't know what they put in that cheese, but man, when we used to cook it, you cannot melt that bad boy. You can put a steamroller on top of that thing, and it'll come out just like it went in, man. But that's all right. We don't get our act together, man. How you doing, sir?
Wonderful. Really happy to be here. Can't thank you, gentlemen, enough.
Yeah.
Being here the other day as well. Both of you, real blast.
No doubt.
Consider this part two.
Man, I didn't complete your name. Esquire, right?
Oh, yeah.
Is it Esquire? What does it mean? Everybody has Esquire at the end of their name. What does that mean?
It's an old carryover, that we get from the UK. I guess technically it kind of comes from squire, which is an assistant to a knight. You know, for that reason, I don't particularly like. I feel like I would be
Boom. So I mean, but what does it mean, like here in our country, when somebody has a comma Esquire at the end of the name? What is that? Attorney. Oh, wait! I'm getting out of jail tonight. Call my attorney.
So I don't think in Bill and Ted, Bill S. Preston, Esquire.
No, that didn't count. That didn't quite. So what kind of law do you practice?
So I like to say business and civil, you know, and that's really the cast a broad net in case I'm thirsty and I need to grab a client here or there.
Right.
But the real essence of what I do, and certainly have been doing as of the last couple of years, focusing a lot on estate planning and on IP issues, selective, mainly trademark registrations and defense. But estate planning has been something that I've been particularly passionate about. The more I've got involved, the more I've been able to go how badly that area is.
So needed. I mean, my man over here found out the hard way how needed that is.
That's a perfect segue, man. We're talking about today a man's legacy. So I used to be in the military. I used to be stationed on a ship, and when the ship is traveling through the ocean, you look behind the ship, and there's a big long trail of churned up water, and that long trail is called a wake. And that wake is what the ship leaves behind as it plows its way through the ocean of life, right? Real philosophical right now. Pontificating up in here, man.
Don't get it started.
And so, the metaphor for me is that us as men, when we are traveling through the ocean of life, we're leaving a wake behind us, right? We're leaving a legacy behind us. And what a lot of people don't realize is when you're gone, everything you have is going to be somebody else's. Mm-hmm. Your assets, your debts, maybe even your spouse and kids going to be somebody else, or all that kind of stuff is going to be somebody else. And one of the things that we don't necessarily realize when we live in this life is that one day we're not going to be here. The mortality rate is about 100%, right? So one day we'll be here.
Yeah.
So when we're a memory, what is that thing that's left behind? And for us, it's our legacy. When we're gone, nobody, everything you have will be somebody else's. The only thing that will never be anybody else's is your DNA and your legacy, right?
To that, I mean, to Kurt's point, everything you have is going to be somebody else's. Everything you have is going to be passed down. You are a steward. You are a stewardship of whatever
you have, and that becomes part of your legacy. And any
good steward prepares for the next generation. And that's why we're having this episode. So you know how we do it. We talk to the men, we talk for the men. Today we're talking to the men, but ladies, you might want to listen too, because this applies for you as well. Because that legacy, that stewardship, plays out in a lot of ways that aren't real sexy.
Right.
It's not really fun, but it is so necessary.
Yeah, and this is, back to the whole point of what you mentioned a little bit ago. I just had a passing in the family a few weeks ago. My grandmother passed away, and thanks. And one of the things that it was really my first time with a front row seat to what happens when you're gone in terms of now, luckily in our case, we didn't have to worry about some things like our house. We had taken care of that several years ago. But there's other things like, man, first of all, just planning a funeral arrangements, all that kind of stuff, but then notifying this and banks and, Social Security, and in her case, Medicare, Medicaid, and all this other kind of stuff, man. And it was just so many things that it's a whole checklist and stuff. And people don't realize, right? Like how much things are kind of left behind. Would you agree?
Yeah, would absolutely agree. I see it every day, and outside of just the sheer amount that needs to be done, in fact, from the state of mind, and when a loved one has passed, so it's sort of the passive a set of tasks that are already kind of difficult, or certain teams. You definitely want to pre-plan, have all that taken care of ahead of time, have the necessary documentation. There's no other way. And yet, for some reason, looking at the stats the other day, at best, a third of Americans leave some kind of estate plan. And that's
38%.
And by far, they say that most of that is sort of a matter of wills, and a lot of times people neglect to do other things, such as advance directives or beneficiary designations, because a lot of that can kind of alleviate some strain of let's say you have a land use policy, whatever it may be, you certainly want insurance companies to be aware so they get that check right up in limbo, and I don't know the impression is yours, but for me personally, I'm always talking about trust, because it's like you're brand new to estate planning as a concept. You begin to look at it, I think of all those things, wills, but the reality, the real free isn't trust.
So let's break it down, because you're the expert. That's why we brought you in here. What would be like the top 3 things, and just bullet point it, because we're going to want to dig into each one that somebody who wants to leave a legacy, somebody who needs to do their estate planning. What are the top 3 things they want to look at? Because you already said wills, you said trust, estate planning.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of estate plan, the trust I'm going to put as number 1. I'm going to put the will as number 2, and we'll get into why you potentially. Outside of that, if you ask me to say 3, I'm going to have to make some hard choices between.
We can do more than 3 if you're like, I can't break it down to 3, 4, or 5.
Yeah. Okay. So you certainly want to have a power of attorney. So you also want to have a power of attorney, and then you want to have a healthcare directive. Okay. So then you want to have
healthcare directives, and then you want to have the beneficiary designations. So is that 5? Yeah. So I'd say 5. I don't think there's a way to get around that.
Okay. Man, I appreciate that. That all those kind of things, again, there's so many things that we don't think about unless you had to experience any of that kind of stuff. One of the things you even just mentioned, and we will definitely get back into digging into the specifics of it. But when my grandmother went into the hospital that last time, there was the do not resuscitate, all these other kind of things that they wanted. Signatures on, they wanted to know that any of these things were in place, that it wasn't, blah, 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 all this other kind of stuff. And luckily, all that was taken care of.
my mother had all that stuff to just, slap right on the table on the desk. And, I mean, it just knocked so many things, off the table in terms of questions and issues. These are so many different things that we just don't realize unless you've had to experience it in a bad kind of way.
Unfortunately. Yep. What did they say? Necessity is a mother of invention.
Yep.
But, yeah.
Well, and as men, I mean, this is something that we, for the most part, have not been taught. Mm-hmm. And so if we don't have somebody teaching us, it becomes incumbent upon us to teach ourselves. And so that's why we're doing this episode, because, gentlemen, to be a good man, to be a high-value man, to be a good steward of your family, your children, your legacy, you need to do these things. And no, it's not sexy, it's not fun, but think of the peace of mind you'll have when you know your all of your rights, your wishes, all those things will be upheld after you pass. And you know you're not leaving somebody with a big bucket of debt or bills. You got everything taken care of. And so it's not sexy, but this is something that is the groundwork, the foundation of it. I mean, we had Barry on to talk about the castle. This is part of that foundation. You want to have this foundation of what is going to happen to my legacy, what is going to happen to my assets, what's going to happen to my estate when I'm gone. And have that before you're gone, because you never know. Especially nowadays, people are dropping like flies, so it's time to take this seriously.
Yeah, when we did that, we talked about can a man be a king without a castle, right? He can be a king without a queen, but he can be a king without a castle. And to your point, I think part of that, part of us being a king and having kind of that moniker, having that status, or whatever you call that mantle. Part of that is a succession plan. I mean, if you look at what we just saw last year play out in England. I mean, the Queen passed, and immediately it was like this happens, this happens, this happens, this happens. There wasn't sitting around the kitchen table, eating buffalo wings, talking about who's going to do this, who's going to do that. All that stuff is taken care of. And these are the things that even as a man, this is business that we need to take care of, even when we're not going to be here to see the business play out. So from a man's perspective, these are the kind of things that we need to consider in terms of creating safe space for other people, even though we will never see it play out. Even though we hope that I did mine last year. I gave copy to my mom, a copy to my brother, and I told him, I hope you never have to open those. But if you do, then you got to. I hope to outlive all y'all. But at the same time, all these questions. Because in my case, you got multiple kids, you got exes, you got all whatever, all these other people dipping and dabbing and all that kind of stuff. And it just makes it a whole lot cleaner.
Just imagine if you don't have that blueprint, all of those people who supposedly love each other are going to be at each other's throats about, no, Dad want me to have this, Dad want me to do that. And, it's just be speaking of what Dad wants.
I bet Dad want to break. Daddy want to break. Daddy want to break. Let's take a break. Madden and Masculinity, KLDC, 12:20 a.m. in the Mile High City, on the interwebs, everywhere. We'll be right back. Boom.
I'm gonna fix you up a little bit.
Okay. Mike black in my face, huh?
Yeah, you got your face, man.
One thing it's hard to do, but look here, look at us here, and then. Because it's so easy to look at him when he's talking.
I follow you. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, that's one. Yeah. I mean, I sometimes do it too. I sometimes go back and forth,
but yeah, that is one of the. I got to remember looking at the camera.
I do, Max. I know he's like, I'm looking at
yeah, it is. Even though we're really we talk to each other through the.
Okay. Just that way, so when people are watching like the YouTube, they're like, I can't. They're not even looking at the camera.
Cell phones, yeah. No, Jason has his laptop. Sorry.
Uh-oh.
Hey, what?
The phone left the bathroom.
Oh, yeah, that is my phone.
Uh-oh.
Is it all black with the black case?
You got it right there?
Yeah, that's how much I love my phone. No wonder. See, it's a good thing I had my laptop. I would have been thinking like, where's my phone? I can't use my phone.
See, you need a wheel, man. You need losing stuff all over.
Save it for the next episode, man. Save it for the next episode.
You need a wheel. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. I need that golf stuff. I need all that. Everything that's Callaway goes to Kirk. Everything. All right, ready?
And we're back.
That's right.
Mad Men of Masculinity on KLGC. And today we're talking, gentlemen, about your legacy.
Your legacy.
Your legacy. Your legacy.
That's right. What do you have? What are you creating? And who are you leaving it to?
That's right.
I mean, this is one of those things, we, amongst all the topics that we do, we do a lot of just casual kind of stuff, popular topics and relationships, all this kind of fun stuff. But this is the kind of stuff that is practical. This is the kind of stuff that, I mean, we're committed, we said this while we're committed this year to helping men level up. Man, when men level up, everybody levels up. And so we're mid of the tide when the tide comes in, all those rise. And so we're committed to providing tangible stuff, from dynamic people that we know locally who are doing great things, and who can help you level up in your life and in your business. And so this is one of those conversations where it's practical. It's not so much just, wedgies and backslaps.
Ain't sexy, but it's practical.
And that's the thing, like a lot of things, may not be sexy, but it's the business kind of thing. And from a man perspective, we got to be about our business.
Yeah, this is the getting into the dirt. This is the digging down, creating that foundation, making sure you are taken care of, making sure your family's taken care of, your kids taken care of, and for the most part, making sure your transition is as easy as possible. Because you don't want your loved ones, the people you care most about, as you leave these things to be arguing amongst themselves and trying to decide what you wanted after you're gone. You want to make sure they know implicitly that these are my wishes, this is how I want it done. Because there's still going to be some infighting, but if you have it in writing, you have everything like, this is how I want my body to take care of, this is how I want my assets to take care of, they have to follow that. I mean, you do not want to be leaving all your assets to, was it probate? You don't want the judge to be deciding what to do with your stuff.
And you don't want no crazy baby mama coming in, want hers and how I did. He said I was going to get this and all that. No one of that. Like you need to have it written down. The first thing you said, we might as well get into it. The first thing you said that we need to talk about it, about trust. Break that down a bit. Tell us why.
Okay, so typically, when we think of estate plan, right, we think of a will. But what happens with that will, with the traditional will, is that the will has to be admitted in probate. So probate is a process that's carried out by a certain court, and what happens in that process is that they basically give people the opportunity to contest the will, but it's a formal process of admitting the will and then administering everything that needs to be done under the terms of the will. Now, the problem is that probate process can last anywhere from probably about 9 months to a year and a half, even on average. And then there's obviously cost associated with probate. So there's court costs, there's attorney fees, et cetera, right? I would say that if you can get in and out of probate with paying less than 10% of the overall assets, right? Then you're doing good, and that's a significant amount of money, right? It could be going to family members or to some other noble cause besides, paying guys like me, right? So I think that's a missed opportunity. Now, what you do then to make sure that you do not fall, into that pit hole, right? Is that you want to take the course of trust. Now, with the trust, basically what you're doing with the trust is that it's almost like an LLC in terms of being like a legal fiction, a legal entity, and you create this entity for the purpose of holding the assets that will eventually go to the beneficiary. So let's just say that somebody passes, that somebody has 2 houses. Each house is supposed to go to one of the 2 kids, right? Either of the 2 kids. So you create this trust, you transfer the houses into the name of the trust, and then when the event occurs, which is the death of the the settler, when that individual passes, then you can take those assets, the houses, and then transfer them on to the beneficiaries if that's what the plan is, as opposed to leaving it in the name of the trust. But what that does, though, is that because the assets aren't in the name of the person that passed, then now you don't have to go through probate. So you save yourself a lot of costs. Not only that, but you can access assets controlled and owned by the trust almost virtually immediately, right? Because typically in that scenario, especially with most of the living trusts that we create, if let's say I'm setting up a trust for you, you would be the actual trustee. And then you would have a backup trustee, and that would probably be one of the beneficiaries. When we're dealing with high asset or high net worth individuals, sometimes it may not necessarily be the best idea to have the beneficiaries serve as backup trustees. But in the terms of just what works for the average family, you need, then let's be real, right? We know which one of the kids are the most responsible.
That's why you have that trust. You put the age limit on it. You can't have this until you're at least 18 or 25 or something like that, because you don't want them young and crazy. Like even in that example you gave, my mind went to, if I've got millions of dollars and then I make this trust and then I make one of the beneficiaries a co-trustee, I might get taken out. My coffee I don't want. Like they want my green beans. That's a little morbid, but
But listen, speaking of superstition, you bring up an important point. So a lot of people that I speak with, they haven't taken steps to set up estate plans because they're superstitious, right? They feel like if you set up an estate plan, it's going to cause you to die, and it's like that type of thinking will keep you effed up.
Yeah, it might actually cause you to get a nice sleep, because now your family's taken care of, your wishes are taken care of, that your crazy kids aren't going to get all that money until you decide that they're old enough.
Yeah. No, but you did raise a good point. Yeah, you definitely want to add some terms that deal with things like that. Now, of course, ideally, in a perfect world, by the time we pass, our kids are they've been adults for quite a few years. But like you also mentioned earlier, people dropping like flies these days at all ages. We're seeing young people go, we're seeing celebrities go, and we're seeing a lot of these people go with no kind of estate plans in place, and these lawyers are getting rich off of the process. I think in the case of Chadwick Boseman, I want to say over $1 million went towards probate costs.
Wow.
Out of the state, that was only valued at $3.8 million. So we're talking over 25%. And
they got 1/4 of Wakanda. Man, come on, man.
They said Wakanda forever. It ain't forever anymore.
But this is that example right there is exactly why we're having this conversation. And a lot of people say, well, our state's not even 3 point. Somebody once told me, because I think this happened to a friend of mine a long time ago. I don't have nothing, I'm not worth anything, whatever. And, the example was, well, okay, you may not have nothing, but what if you die in a car accident where you got T-boned by a drunk Amazon driver who ran a red light because he was texting? You probably going to be worth something even though you did. I mean, and so it's one of those things that it's not a matter of what you have now, and you never know what you never know the circumstances, any of those kinds of things. If somebody, if somebody dies in a plane crash, there's a settlement coming, all these other kind of things, and you just never, if you drank some of that Camp Lejeune water back in the day, you never know what might come up. And so these are important conversations, man, and I think it goes without saying, obviously, you're a Colorado attorney, right? So generally speaking, you're talking from a Colorado perspective. And obviously, you're not giving legal advice to anybody here today. So we cover all that because you got some idiots out there that say, he told me to do this. Now I want to quarter his estate.
No. Educational purposes.
Education.
Yeah. But I've been out here for a few years now, originally from Detroit. But this is based iilawfirm.com, for the shameless plug. But absolutely. We're just talking about how people miss an opportunity to kind of go the direction of the trust, and then a lot of other people make no effort at all. It almost doesn't matter what your estate is valued at. It's literally almost always worth it to have an estate plan. I'd say in 99.9% of circumstances, and then the cost is relatively, or can be relatively low. Some of the work that I've done has really been aimed at trying to make estate planning a viable option for people that don't necessarily have thousands of dollars hanging around. and then we have ways to even assist with the cost of that is a whole other conversation, perhaps. But yeah, our voice just to kind of make it available, sort of normalize it, so to speak. Because right now it's certainly not normal, and we see disparities from one community to the other. But just like I said, Americans as a whole, the numbers are terrible.
Yeah. So I mean, super quick for the next break here. What is a will?
Like, how's that different than a trust?
So when you think of a trust, right, I mentioned that the trust is basically an entity. The entity is going to hold these assets, So the will basically is about empowering someone to kind of step into your shoes and act on your behalf, take care of what you want them to take care of based on a specific set of instructions. Most of the wills that we create are actually what we call pour-over wills. And it's an extremely simple kind of will. And the only purpose of it is that, think of it in terms of the trust again. If you have the trust, we put the assets in the name of the trust. We would have a list of those assets. Well, perhaps you come across some additional assets through your lifetime, right? That that for whatever reason, right? You don't put them in the trust, or you don't even reference them in the trust. Well, that pour-over will takes everything outside of the trust, and then it pours them into the trust, which is why they call it a pour-over will. But yeah, that's an absolute necessity. I mean, the way we structure ours is that it's virtually a part of the actual trust. It's just like the last few pages of the trust. But of course, that's not the only kind of wills there are. A lot of other people just choose will. I'm not entirely sure as to why. Because, like I said, from my perspective, it's a virtual no-brainer. But that's really what the will is about, though. It's just about, I would imagine that's why they call it will, just carrying out the will of the actual testator. But in that sort of setup, then we're not taking assets, we're not transferring into someone else's name during the individual's lifetime or anything along those lines.
And so in that will, do you list individual assets and all that kind of stuff? Like, what gets listed in the will?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm a fan of I'd have like an attached schedule, because what we'll find is that sometimes you need to almost always, you need to update that schedule from time to time. We'll have a separate sort of schedule. It'll serve as basically the last page of that will, and then it'll list assets, and then we'll indicate who's getting what, really.
Right. Sounds like, now, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you want to have a will, but you should have a will in a trust so that it's protected in probate, so that those assets actually go where you want them to go, versus you just have a will, no trust. And then what takes over and it goes into probate for 9 months or a year, and then you families fight over it, and it doesn't go the way you want it to.
Okay, and let me just revise a couple things. Is that I would just say that the will is sort of something we use in conjunction with the trust. And unfortunately, even when you have a pour-over will, that is a will that needs to go through probate. But it's better that you have it there, just as a precaution, because again, when you create your estate plan, you want to sort of occasionally, get it updated, right? But if you fail to do it, it's certainly better to have that pour-over will as a, as sort of a catch-all, even though if there are any assets you would need to go to probate, because of course you'd rather have the ability to get those assets after channeling them through probate than not have that available at all, So it's just basically a backup plan.
Is there any way to set it up so that it's not going through probate, like it's not going to end up in the probate courts and go straight to where you want it to go? Is there any way to set that up, or is it?
Well, okay, so I mean, the way to do that is the trust, right? And all I'm saying is that what happens is, let's say we set up trust today, right? We set up a trust today. Well, what happens if 3 years from now you buy a new house, you completely forget to put that new house in the trust?
Right. So that's where that pour-over will comes in, But largely, I mean, particularly with the people that we work with a lot of times, I mean, look, if you're savvy enough to actually make that step, we try to make it as easy as possible for you to update the trust. So, for example, in our case, right, in my case, I will actually provide people with some sort of standard forms that they can use to update the trust that we created, rather than putting them in a situation where they have to come back to me and keep paying more and more and more.
We like easy. Speaking of easy, though, better ease our way into a break. Mad Minute Masculinity KLD. Take a break, y'all. We'll be right back.
That's 13 minutes already?
That was 13 minutes. Actually, that was 14 something.
Right.
It goes by quick.
Okay.
The first one's always a little like sketchy. And once we get into the flow, you're like, what?
Yeah, it goes by super quick. And of course, so on here on StreamYard, all that we call is like behind the scenes. It's on stream. So don't cut somebody out here.
Don't call my baby mom.
So we still stream here on StreamYard. By the way, everybody watch live. You know, comment on the bad boy. You got a question, something like that. You can't be famous for the on the screen. You got
only if I like your comments.
Only be like, mostly stupid. You'll get the baby powder. Just saying. With the 5 fingers to the face. But yeah, if y'all guys out there comment or something like that, chat on this bad boy, and we'll definitely make you famous there. All right. Is you ready?
I was ready. You ready? He's over there. Email. Man, so busy you can't take a break.
Are we back on? If not, I'm gonna get this call.
I don't want to do that.
There we go. I'm still alive.
Is he back?
And we are back. We back. Madman Masculinity, KLDC, 1220 AM in the Mile City and on the interwebs everywhere. We invented that word interwebs, by the way. I think. I don't know. Whatever. Hey, support local radio people out there. Support local radio. You know, shout out to super producer Nikki Nicole. She's there. We call her Skills even though she's not very skilled. She said she was coming back with all colors. Sometimes she has her hair like a 2 weeks. Sometimes her hair looks like a pack of Starburst. But 2 weeks, 2 weeks to get some color back in her hair there. But absolutely, folks. Shout out, like I said, support local radio. I mean, for real.
Yeah, partner with us. Let us support you. You support us. It's a win-win situation. Speaking of win-win situations, our man Issa Isreal is in the house.
That's right.
Attorney.
Esquire. He got a magazine named after.
I like that magazine, man.
You know what I'm saying?
I get some good ideas.
We got a magazine named after us. Mad Magazine.
That's right.
You didn't see that magazine. No, you didn't see that. Hey, we're talking about legacy today. We're talking about legacy and what legacy are you leaving behind? Leaving behind a proper legacy. You know, especially as men. We got to handle business. We got to take care of business for ourselves and for others. And sometimes, in this case, you might be taking care of business that you might never see it play out. But either way, as a man holding space, safety, provision, all those other kind of things, you know, this is something that you do as a service to those left behind when you're gone. Because the mortality rate is 100%. You here right now, you don't know tomorrow's not promised to any of us, right? So, I mean, so these are the things we get into. Just talking about some of the proper ways to leave a legacy. And I think on the next segment, we're going to get personal. We're going to find out about Mr. Esquire over here. Oh, yeah. Esquire.
So as men, and as we're talking about what is a legacy, what you're leaving as a legacy, think in idea of stewardship again. Like you plant trees that you will never see the shade of. You know, you plant and this is what you're doing with your family. You want to make sure you are setting up a path for them to prosper in the future. You're setting up something for them to, you know, have shade of or have the fruit of in the future. So how do we do that? How do we do that, Mr. Esquire?
Did you come up with that on your own, man? Plant trees that you will never be in the shade of.
I read, man.
I was about to say, man, because that was kind of private school, man. You know, that was kind of deep, man. I know you did. That's why I kind of questioned that one. But I'm sorry, I completely hijacked and interrupted your question.
You're good.
I was on the flow. I was doing something, and I know I got to deal with over here.
You know,
yeah. But as we're leaving that legacy, as we're planting those trees, what you know, you talked about the trust, we talked about the will. In that estate planning, what are the best ways? Like we've already talked about that trust and that will. As we're moving forward down that list of 5 things, what else do we need to know? Like, how do we set this up so that we know we're taken care of, our wishes are taken care of, and our families taken care of?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm sorry. But just in terms of getting through the list, right? And then I will backtrack and talk about a couple of the things that probably more substantively address what you're saying. So you certainly want to have these what we call these healthcare directives. Basically telling the hospitals and doctors what you want to happen. In the event you can't speak for yourself.
And there's more than just do not resuscitate, right? There's more than DNR.
Oh yeah. No, it could be quite comprehensive, but that's the main point of it. And I would just say that, in my opinion, I think people need to really think carefully, I guess, about that, because sometimes I think this is all opinion based, certainly not legal advice. Okay, this component here, but I think that sometimes people need to make a decision of whether or not they want to tell hospitals what to do in advance, or whether or not you want to make sure you trust a loved one to make the decision for you. Because sometimes there can be a conflict between the two, and hey,
I want to live, baby. No, I want your will.
And listen, let's also be real now. There are these donor lists going on, going around.
People trying to get my kid.
I got that donor on my license. Should I get that taken off? Is that what you're telling me?
In my opinion, take it off, man. In my opinion, that's perfect.
So basically, like, they're like, we need a kidney here. We need.
He ain't gonna make it. He ain't gonna make it.
I want to live. He ain't gonna make it.
I want the kidneys. I want the breathing. I want that lung, that heart, that eyeball.
Yeah.
Have you seen the price list of those things?
Man, I don't even want to know.
Hey, look.
Start hacking off horses. It was just a pay bill.
So you do have the medical directives. You do have all those kind of things that can be part of that whole estate planning thing. And so you're saying that sometimes it's better to, or maybe you might want to think about being specific or not. I never actually thought about that, because in mine I put like how many days, this and how many days that, all this other kind of stuff. And
no, you want to be fact, and you want to be like I said, my advice,
right,
not legal advice, but just sort of look, thinking about it in a layman's perspective here, right? If there's a family member whose judgment you trust, then I think you got to put a lot of weight on that, and perhaps not someone who is going to allow maybe emotions to dictate their decision as well. But we've seen it both ways, so we certainly see these situations in which the miracles happen, where the doctor says one thing, the prognosis is this, and then the person comes out of the coma. So, but then we've also seen the reverse, we know the reverse happens, I'd say, and we see these situations where people are left in these states, and it just goes on and on and on, and we don't know how much they're experiencing, how much they're feeling in these states, I think maybe someone who with great judgment may be better positioned than even you yourself if you're making that decision in advance, sort of theoretically, right? But so maybe you got a brother who's tough, or maybe he don't like you. Maybe that's the best.
I don't know, man. I got too many fluctuating relationships in my life, man. I got some.
I don't want to give them plug rights, man. I don't want to give them plug rights.
I don't know, man. Some people I don't know, because sometimes last Christmas wasn't all that great.
Yeah.
Put your golf buddy down there. Your golf buddy. That's a good one there.
I'll put JBK.
You gotta do that.
Yeah, but they pull my blood if you want some stuff.
I want that Cowboys sweater. See that hoodie got, man?
No, it's nice. I see it.
Get that. I hold it on the back. For real.
Your birthday's coming up. I better calm down. Do my clothes for real.
So another thing, and I would say this is kind of tangentially related, right? It's related, period, right? It's like real estate, so do a little bit of real estate law, but it's sort of in terms of how it relates to estate planning. A lot of times I see people, especially investment properties, I'm kind of big on telling people not to hold them in the individual names. So let's say, for example, we're collecting these assets, to put in the trust. Then one thing I make sure I have them do is to take that property, maybe have that property held by an LLC. The LLC is held by the trust for now, And there are some advantages to that, one, depending on the type of trust that you have. Let's say you have a living trust. So that's not necessarily something that needs to be disclosed to anybody, right? So they're not really aware of who owns the trust, what the terms of it are, or anything like that. Now in Colorado, you do have something similar with the LLCs, and that's that people don't really know who owns the LLC either. In a lot of states, you could go online and find it out. Not here, per se. And for whatever reason, a lot of people think that registered agents, that sort of denotes ownership. It absolutely does not. It just basically tells you who you can serve if you were suing that company. So bottom line is, you can hold the property in the name of the trust or directly, or you can hold that property through an LLC, which would limit liability, and then the LLC would be held by the trust. Let's say you're a rich guy like you gentlemen. You have 4 or 5 different investment properties. Each one of those would be held by a different LLC. Then they're all held by the trust.
And there are definitely tax benefits, estate benefits to basically all of your equity properties or investment properties or anything that's of big value into a trust. And even to take it out of your name, might put it in a different trust.
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, in way of taxes, I don't want to get into taxes. We're all going to end up locked up. But yeah, I mean, look, I'll say this, man, that everyone in the know, especially the people who they do not hold properties in their own name. And let's just look at it this way, right? Imagine you have an investment property, and you're renting it out, right? And then someone in that home, something terrible happens, some house fire, whatever the case may be, right? You get sued. Let's say insurance can't cover it or won't cover it due to some loophole, which they constantly look for in these kinds of situations, right? Then, if you have that particular property held by an LLC, right, then your exposure is limited to that LLC. So they can't, just in layman's terms, right? They can't sue you as an individual. They can't sue you for one of your other properties that had nothing to do with this, So yeah, so you certainly want to have those sort of separated out that way, and make sure that that's reflected in your estate plan. But even if you don't have an estate plan, don't hold these properties in your own name.
Wow. Because first, the uber wealthy, they get into like family limited partnerships, and they get into all that. They know how to insulate themselves and how to make sure they set up all these entities and all these other kind of things. Again, a lot of people say, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, first of all, we're on our way to leveling up. And these are things that you need to know. These are things that they know that you don't know. These are, again, things that are conversations that we don't normally have. A lot of us don't have this front porch conversation with people. Like, if you want to get to that level, you need to understand the way those people think and how they move, and then begin to move the way they move to make sure that you're able to swim in the same pond. Yeah, so that's why these conversations are important.
As a man who's leveling up, as a man who's becoming high value and bettering himself, you want to insulate yourself. You want to insulate your family. You want to insulate your property, so that you get to keep the lion's share, the majority of it. I mean, even just what he was saying about if you just have a will without a trust, and they take 10% of your estate in probate, so the lawyers are just taking off the top that money to run it through the probate courts. If you can use these tools and techniques that are out there to insulate yourself, insulate your estate, and insulate your family, they get more of that estate for them.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And then, let me just point out one thing too. Well, 2 things. But the first is I think the average American, we've got to stop looking at these kinds of steps as something that needs to be done when we get to a certain level, like financially. You've got to get it in place. And like I said, this is not just about me plugging my own firm, but for real. No, for real. Listen, there are attorneys that'll make it affordable. And I see people losing significant amounts of money. I had discussed a situation with you guys the other day, obviously, keeping confidentiality in play and all that. There's a particular estate where it wasn't clear what was left. It wasn't clear whether or not there even was an estate plan, and someone popped up with a copy of a document, so that case has been going on. There's been litigation about it, because basically when the surviving family members found out about it, of course they objected, and that litigation is ongoing, and what we saw in that estate, it was about the size of Chadwick Boseman's estate, right? But it's about half of that now, right? And counting, right? Because what will happen in some cases is that the court will step in, and we're not just talking about court fees and attorney costs, right? A lot of times, what we're talking about is the court appointing a company to serve as a conservator, or the company, in the case of someone being alive, let's say, right? But or a court appointing a company, a law firm, to serve as a personal representative or executive, or what have you. And those companies and law firms make other decisions. So, for example, in this case, they said that these houses needed special cleaning by the by these companies that you wear the hazmat groups. $30,000 a pop.
Their buddy owns a cleaning company, and so
we know what time it is, right? Yeah. So you milk the estate every which way possible. So you don't want that to happen, and you got to make some tough decisions. Jump on this, spending a few grand now in order to potentially save, and it's a can't even count how much money.
And to that point, if you do it now, you do it up front, you take that hit, but then you just keep updating. You've already done it. Upfront costs is done. So speaking of upfront costs, we better pay some.
Yeah, let's do some low dollar. Let's do some low dollar marketing around here. Some low dollar. That's what we believe in. Small dollar marketing. All right, we'll be right back. Mad Men Masculinity, KLDC, 12:20 a.m. We'll be right back. Oh, that was like 14:50.
I almost said pay some bills. That's and I heard John Rush's voice in my head.
Don't say that. Yeah.
She heard it in my head.
Heard it coming. Boom. I got one question, and then I want to talk about you. I want to highlight you, if that's all right.
No,
we've given enough advice. Now,
okay.
Yeah.
The only thing I'll say is I don't want to go into my assets now.
No.
As a person, IRS about to eat.
We ain't trying to put, we don't put no front street. No, we put no front street.
I was got to beat around the bush, and you were like, okay, how about protect? Look, I am not trying to know which way to look.
Nah, we ain't rolling like that. No, sir. No, sir. But you're a man. That perspective, you're a high value man. So you're a high value man.
Okay.
So we can get some high value man. But I do have one.
All right, I'll bring this back out
for sure.
And we're back. Mad Men Masculinity on KLDC. We're talking legacy, fellas, and Kirk and Samuels.
Yes, sir.
What's your question?
I got a question. I got a question for Mr. Esquire. I'm just kidding with the name. Everybody got a nickname. You're from the deep, man. You know everybody got a nickname. You know what I'm saying?
Pookie.
Where you from? 8 Mile? 7 Mile.
See, 8 is not legitimate. I mean, it's the cutoff.
That's all everybody knows.
That's because of the movie.
It's across the street. It's not really Detroit.
Yeah. I mean, if you cross 8 Mile, then you're out of Detroit, right? Yeah.
I got you. So I got one like legal question, not legal question, but along the lines of what we're talking about. You talked about the trust, you talked about the will, you talked about all that kind of stuff. But if I'm not mistaken, at least here in Colorado, correct me if I'm wrong, what you have on your insurance beneficiaries trumps what's in a will, right? Or wrong. Or it could be.
Okay. Man, you know what?
I have seen litigation around that, right? I don't want to come down on either one. On either side of that issue, because to be honest, I don't recall how it played out. Yeah, I'll be honest. However, what I can say with probably 95-degree certainty, is that the beneficiary is going to trump. Now once they, let's say for example, if whatever that asset is, if it's life insurance, and you put generally people don't put life insurance. You kind of keep it separate. But let's just say if for whatever reason they did include that in the formal estate plan, then they would probably muddy the waters, But what's going to happen is that the insurance company is going to be obligated to write that check to the beneficiary because that's what's on their contract, So like I said, with about 95% certainty, that's how it's going to play out. But yeah, Me and a lawyer like to talk in circles.
Yeah.
Man. When it comes to litigation, you don't know what's going to happen. But I can say about 95% certainty.
So, with that being said, I should not put a beneficiary as my estate. I should put a name on life insurance.
Well, I'm not sure that there would be much of an advantage either way, unless you had some concern. So most of us in our families is 1 or 2 kids where you give them too much money at one time, it'll be a curse in disguise,
I had to cover up my game on that one.
So maybe you want those funds to go to trust, and maybe there are some additional provisions, right, that you want to employ to make sure they get that money over time or in smaller installments or whatever the case.
Gotcha.
All right. So that's it. It's about you, man. Let's talk about you.
Yeah,
Let's talk about you, man. How are you, man?
It's all good. It's all good. Yeah, I'll be 44 next month.
Nice. Oh, man. Black don't crack. Brown don't frown and beige don't age. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's the way we roll. I'm looking over here.
Give me some lotion.
You're looking at me. I'm just saying it is. And I noticed you have a ring.
Yes, sir.
I mean, what did you want to talk about your relationship status?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, I'm a TMI type person. No. Yeah, man. Yeah. So second marriage. First produced 2 great kids. Recently remarried. Actually, my anniversary is coming up.
What?
Yeah.
What day?
Well, so that's complicated. Here's where it gets complicated. Okay, we were married on Abib the 1st. Okay, which was April 2nd last year. This year though is actually not going to fall on April. It's so. Yeah, so we're going to be observing it based on where it falls on the Hebrew calendar versus the Gregorian calendar. Yeah. So that, all that said, though, is either the 24th or the 26th.
I see how it's complicated.
Pull the calendar out.
I see how it's complicated.
Yeah.
I see that.
So you're a high value man.
Yes.
No. That first value because you're humble about it. You're a high value man. I mean, for real. You're tall, you're good looking. You got it going on. Blah blah blah. You got the sixes going on. I'm sure you got 6 pack under there. But that being said, so we got a lot of men who want to be high value men out there. Guys that's single on couch. What's his first step to become a high value man? In your opinion.
Okay, so. You mentioned philosophy earlier. So for me, I can be a little bit philosophical, but I just say real quick. See, to me, a lot of times people haven't figured out, let me say, their why, so to speak. Because I think a lot of times we will, give people a list of things to do, but if you don't know why you're doing it, then you're not going to remain motivated, right? You end up falling off, so to speak.
See, he's going right back to purpose. Yeah. What's your why? You get the book. Sinus and X starts with why. Why? What is your why? What is your purpose?
See, I didn't even know that. Okay.
Who are you being? Why are you being that? And what is it that's keeping you going through the trials and tribulations of life?
And I'm guessing your opinion was probably it can't be just for one. It can't be just to get one, right?
Okay.
Maybe that's a man.
What's your man answer?
Okay. So listen, I'm not gonna lie.
That's the truth.
I think that if women didn't exist, the bottom would fall out of society, right? I mean, dudes wouldn't shave, wouldn't go to work, we wouldn't do anything, I mean, we'd all be eating ice cream or whatever, as much as we like to put them on. No, nothing would really matter to men, or at least a significant portion of men. There are others that might actually be quite elated. But right. So anyway, no, not at all.
Just think about single guys during the pandemic on their couch in their sweatpants eating pebbles all day. See, that's what happens when we don't have the ladies in the line.
No, so true. So true. Yeah. So that's definitely a significant motivation. Obviously, if you have kids, that should trump everything. I mean, sometimes I'm exhausted, I'm tired. Yeah, and I remember I got kids. I mean, there are times, I've been in some tough situations in life. Kind of picture my kid's face or whatever they need, whatever they got going on, and use that as my guide to push me further, to try to make a better decision, try to make the right decision, what have you, but for me, I mean, I will say that I am I'm highly ambitious. You know, I'm not sure how to get ambitious if you're not, though. I'll be honest with you there, you know, outside of that purpose. But like I said, for some people, depending on what your purpose is, you know, maybe it's more modest, but I think that in order to be happy, of course, you know, as long as you're meeting your needs, you know, and on that path, you know, that's the fastest way to get there. So that's been it for me, man. You know, I have a total of 4 kids, ranging from 2 to 22. Yeah. So
deep loins.
You've been producing for a minute.
Oh yeah.
You've been producing for 2 decades, man.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've been in this game for forever. There has not been a year of my life in which I haven't been a single father as well. So, well, I mean, now I'm married, right?
Right.
Yeah. No. That is some heavy lifting, you know, early on. And yeah, I mean, thank God I'm married now. I don't know what I'd do with a 2-year-old. I don't know why.
It's probably better to not be up in the streets. I mean,
no, it is. I mean, and for me, it's a distraction. You know, when I was single, it could really be a distraction and a lot of time wasted. Not to mention money. You know, I mean, you know,
we're always paying for it. We're always paying for it. I mean, that's the truth, one way or the other.
Oh yeah, yep. Yeah. So that's been my journey. Yeah, I'm really happy to be, you know, remarried and now, you know, moving forward towards our goals as a family. You know, my wife is recently licensed in real estate, and so, you know, together we're you know, building our empire, so to speak.
See, as a team, working together, ladies, pay attention.
Teamwork
as a team.
Absolutely.
Teamwork, for real. Man, that's some profound stuff right there. Just in terms of the partnership, you had the ups and downs in personal life, professional life. I would imagine you had some challenges and all those kinds of things, man. And to keep plugging forward and to bring all that stuff together, man. That's powerful, man. It just is, especially just, you know, as a man, you know, man in our 40s these days, man.
Yeah. No, speaking of challenges, look, I mean, I'll get personal and tell you this. So it's like I got divorced. Like, let me rephrase it. I got separated at first when I started law school. You know, and I started law school. I was already over 30 when I started. This is over 10 years ago, though. Yeah, and so that was a journey in and of itself. You know, at the time, you know, the ex-wife, she took the girl, I took the boy, you know, and yeah, we, you know, I kind of white knuckled it through law school, going through that, you know, and you know, I respect her, wonderful lady. But yeah, I think that we were going sort of like 2 different directions. You know, she met me when I had cornrows and was wearing long tees.
Man,
the day I cut my hair, well, was that? Yeah, well, sort of. I was never really huge on the baggy pants. I don't say that. But yeah, the day I cut my cornrows, she almost cried. She was so upset with me, you know.
See, they meet you one way, they want to keep you that way. But like, I'm trying to level up.
No, listen, like for real, I'm not even trying to play, right? You know, she's remarried, you know, someone who more so fits that mold, and they're happy, and I respect it and everything. We're super cool, you know. Yeah. But back then, man, it was a rough road. And let me just say this too, since we're talking about legacy and all that, I would just say that one of the biggest shifts I had to get in my head emotionally, you know, was because I feel like sometimes as men, when a relationship ends, there's like a disconnect that happens between us and the kids, you know, and I'm not sure how like malevolent that is. I think it's something in the minds of men, certainly many of them, where it's like we kind of associate the children with the woman, you know, and so, you know, the relationship ends with the woman, and suddenly, you know, the relationship is not the same with the kids either.
It's like a self-protective thing. Like we're trying to protect ourselves from that pain. And you don't realize what that does to the kids and how it affects those things.
Yeah.
So as we kind of bring this plane in for landing, as we're trying to get down to that runway, what would be your last like 2 cents, you know, for the men out there who want to be high value, who want to leave a good legacy? What would be like, just in a nutshell, what would you want to leave?
Man, I'm going to say grind. I would say that in my life, when I thought that I was at my capacity, I always had a little bit more to give, you know, and I think that you have to be willing to grind. I don't want to get into specific people, but I'll say that there are people close to me who I'm still trying to, you know, help convey that message to, because I think sometimes, you know, I don't know if you guys happen with you guys, I'm sure it does, where, you know, you have a difficult week, you just want to sit down for a while. And I think that's important. But for me, what kind of drives me is this idea that I'm not where I want to be. Now, you can be happy and content about what you have and be appreciative, but then you could also be pushing because you haven't met your goals yet. And I feel like, I mean, like I said, I'm in my, mid 40s here. So it's like, as far as I'm concerned, I've had 25, I've been working since I was 12. So we counted that, over 30 years of working. So it's like, well, what do I have to show for it? If you don't like that answer, then you better get grinding, and make sure that you have a legacy to pass on to your children, and a means of being able to provide for your family no matter what.
Hey man, that's us here in the show, man. We just grinding, dude. You see us. We just grinding on this thing, man. So we're all about that, all about the purpose, man. So last but not least, we gotta let folks know how to get a hold of you.
Sure.
I mean, you're one of the good guys out here, man. You're not trying to take people to the cleaners. You're trying to help people better their lives, better their family, better the situation, man. So you already talked about the fact that you're not just ripping money out of people's pockets. Now you keep it affordable in different ways. Mm-hmm. So you already proven the fact that you have value and people need that value. How can folks get a hold of you?
Okay. Office number 720-664-6411. Email is always great. help@iilawfirm.com. help@iilawfirm.com. And heck, I'll even throw my mobile number out here, 720-338-5522. You can shoot me a text or what have you. And like I said, don't let, I think I have this cheesy line about we don't let costs get in the way. And I am serious about that. So we have ways to kind of help people come up with the funding, maybe low monthly cost type scenario, something along those lines to make sure you get the services that you need. Like I said, especially estate plans, trademarks, LLC setups, that sort of thing, and basic real estate law as well.
Do you have a website as well?
For sure. iilawfirm.com.
Nice. I'm gonna research you. I might have to do some planning here soon.
For sure, brother.
No.
iilawfirm.com. Man, you made it easy for the public school kids out here. People like me, you made that easy, man.
Issa Isreal.
Yeah, I get it. I appreciate you, man. Again, thank you for the time. And you've dropped some serious value here, man. And hopefully this will be the last time that the Madman Mob. Is that what with Madman Mob? Yeah. Hopefully this is the last time Madman Mob won't get to hear from me. So
I'll be happy to be back whenever you need.
Appreciate you, brother. Madman Masculinity, KLC, 12:20 a.m. in the Mile High City. Only interwebs everywhere.
Madman
out.